Hello, welcome to a sporting discussion live. I'm AJ Mithen, joined by Andrew Donaldson. Now, we said it in our social media, but Andrew is actually in the sporting discussion COVID protocol. So
I don't need no mask. There's no one else around me for 28 meters each side.
well, like I said, you've been placed in the sporting discussion COVID protocols, which means you were sent to your room with a bottle of Jack Daniels. How's it all turning out? How are you feeling? Talk us through it, because we don't know many people who have Rona who want to go on live and push on with sports of all sorts.
I know. I'm all right. It's I'm gonna have to stop every now and then to get a deep breath in, because the shortness of breath. They're not lying when they talk about that. But worse than a cold, my symptoms, worse than a cold, not as bad as a flu. So we were talking earlier.
Where would you put it on the Chakasiki ratings?
Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't be at work for the last 4 days. So I think what day is it today? Thursday? No, 3 days. So I started feeling sick on Monday morning. So Monday I wouldn't have gone to work any of those days. Tuesday, look, I might have taken the day and had a round of golf because I was feeling okay in the morning, but by mid afternoon I was no good. So you know how sometimes on a Sunday afternoon you like to have a nap, and then you wake up and you feel nice and refreshed from your nap. Yeah. I'm having an afternoon naps and not waking up feeling refreshed in any way, shape, or form. So.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, not ideal, but there we go. No, still not there. But yeah, look, I'm better than a lot of people. So all good. I had a very kind sister of mine drop off a chemist care package at my door yesterday. So just a big box of ibuprofen, big box of paracetamol, some a Ventolin, which was very useful, and of course some glucogel jelly beans, which make everyone feel better.
Yeah, they're good for the blood, those ones. Well, yes. Well, look, everyone is happy that you've been able to join us. If you need to pass out or just collapse, just turn your camera off. So
I'll leave it on. It's fine. No filters.
Actually, no, leave it on so we can all see the harrowing truth of the coronavirus impact on a fit. Are we middle-aged? We call ourselves. Let's call ourselves middle-aged. What else we got?
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah. Now, AJ, there hasn't been much happening in sport the last couple of days, has there?
Very little. Hey, now because you're in sporting discussion COVID protocols. Maybe I will take the lead with this one, and you can dip in and out as breath allows you. Interesting day yesterday when Novak Djokovic was approved to play in the Australian Open tennis. Yes, he was approved to play. He was approved to play, but apparently he wasn't approved to arrive in Australia. Well, no, he arrived in Australia. He certainly did that, but he was not. It seems he did not have the correct approvals, the correct visa to be allowed into the country. So he is currently cooling his heels at a $109 a night quarantine hotel in Melbourne's city. The latest news that I have just seen to hand is that he has lodged an appeal against the decision in the federal court, and is expected to stay in Australia until at least Monday, they are saying, when a more substantive hearing is scheduled. So they have got his lawyers have an interim injunction that prevents authorities deporting Djokovic until Monday. Andrew, it's sport, it's legal, it's politics, it's just that whole sexy package that we love so much. So talk until your breath runs out, mate, and then we'll change the topic.
So there's 3 approvals that he seems to need. One is approval to enter Australia. One is approval to enter Victoria. And one is approval to enter the Australian Open. Now, much like with every single issue, we need to we need to wait until everything comes out. What was the timeline of events? More and more has been drip fed throughout the day, including some letters that were sent to the Australian Open organisers in response to letters that they sent asking, hey, what's the deal with exemptions, etc. And in the first letter that went back, it basically said, someone who has had COVID within the last 6 months is not considered vaccinated against COVID. Only people vaccinated against COVID can come into the country. Otherwise, you need an official exemption. So it was pretty clear from what I read that the Tennis Australia should have known what the story was. Now, what might have happened is they may have said to Djokovic and every other player's camp, and this is not just a Novak issue, it's just that he's the most high profile and the most recent, that this is what you need to do. And they would have then gone off and done whatever they needed to do. Now, should the Australian Open organise visas for players? Maybe, maybe not. Cricket Australia,
that would be a nightmare of a job.
It would, and it's what I was going to say is Cricket Australia, they would organise visas for all of their players because they are their employer, whereas Tennis Australia are merely the organiser of the tournament. So these individual contractors would need to do it all themselves. There's so much going on, and we don't know what is happening. But the suggestion is, and what I think is probably reasonable to assume, that he probably didn't organise the right visa. And so when he arrived, he wasn't able to provide the appropriate documentation. What I do find quite amusing, amusing is not the right word, enlightening to a lot of the general public is, and I'm quite appreciative of this, the hotel that he's staying in is a refugee asylum seeker hotel where there are people that have been cooped up there for 9 years. And if this brings attention to their plight, then well done, Novak. I'm happy. But what I'm really hoping is that from an amusement perspective, because I like to see the amusing side of things, I would love it if he has not applied for the correct visa and isn't allowed in due to administrative error, because that would just be hilarious.
Administrative chaos, just beautiful, beautiful thing, especially in the sporting world. Sport thrives on administrative chaos, doesn't it? And the arrogance of those who feel that they are untouchable in their chosen field because they have been enabled all the way by people who think they're wonderful. Did you see Djokovic's father saying that he and his crew were going to be fighting people in the street about whether or not he would be? Yes. Very, very funny, interesting.
And again, with taking the fight to the street, then I think there are some Djokovic supporters outside of the hotel, and they are getting a very, very quick education on what it's really like to be treated poorly. So I think they'll go, oh, righto, this might not be as bad for Novak as it is for other people. But am I right? Is my general take right that he may not have applied for the correct visa or may not have had the correct documentation? Do we think that's the issue?
We don't have specifics, but it's looking like that's the issue, that he has gone for. Now, this is all alleged, so don't quote any of this, but the reporting that's coming out is giving a strong indication that his exemption was granted on the grounds that, his visa application was on the grounds that he had tested positive for coronavirus in the past 6 months, which means that you can't have a vaccination for 6 months after you've tested positive for coronavirus.
No, so that's not right. Once you feel better, you can.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I read something that said you couldn't do it. There was some. Anyway,
no, that's people are saying that so that they don't have to get it.
That's what I was thinking. But anyway, that's the requirement is, that you have to have, the Australian Border Force requirement was that if you've tested positive for coronavirus in the last 6 months and you haven't had any vaccines, you're not considered to be vaccinated or in that window that lets you have an exemption if you have had the approved vaccine shots.
Yeah.
So if he had caught Rona 6 months ago and had his approved vaccine, tickety-boo, through he goes. But he has not, and he may have, who knows. It was probably just a thing to say, oh, yeah, I totally had coronavirus. Don't worry about it. I had it like 5 months and 3 and a bit weeks ago. Yeah, it was full on. Yeah. And he comes. So, yeah, but
so
it's interesting. The takes from around the world are interesting because there's not a lot of support for Novak on this one, particularly in places like the US. In Europe, there is, because he is a beloved figure in Serbia and neighbouring spots. He's a big person in the tennis world, obviously, but outside of that, let's never forget he thinks you can change the chemical structure of water by whispering decent, good thoughts into it, whispering good words into it, and positive affirmations. And then how does it go? If you're not feeling well, you can whisper your positive affirmations into the water, and then you drink the water and you take in those positive affirmations, and that makes you better. That is genuinely what Novak Djokovic believes.
I can guarantee that doesn't work because I've been doing that for the past 3 days. But I think you're right in that there's almost like two sides. There's people that are going, this is a complete and utter outrage. Our Novak, our beautiful, pure Novak, whether they are a tennis fan, a Novak fan, a sort of a Serbian who is saying that it's a slight on their country, whatever it may be, like, how dare anything happen? And then there's the other side of it, which is screw Novak, kick him out, blah, blah, blah. There's far too little measured, calm, rational. Let's look at the facts. Let's look at the documentation. What did he require? What did he provide? What's actually happening? Let's just stop, take a step back. But hey, that's not how things work. AJ, I like to do that, but it seems as though
the world lost its mind quite some time ago, and it just gets worse and worse with this stuff now. We don't talk politics on a sporting discussion live because politics is for strange people. We don't like to think we're strange people, but this situation has seriously turned into absolutely smooth brain, cooked brain takes from the left, the right, and the center are just making awesome memes and posting them all over social media. It has been a gold medal day for funny internet today.
Yes, see, that is true. That is very true. I did enjoy the memes of Roger Federer and Nick Kyrgios's face photoshopped onto the border security people or border patrol. So that was amusing.
And if you have a favorite meme, make sure you hit us up on our Twitter at ASD_radio on Twitter, where quite a few folk are watching live. So g'day everyone there. Or you can go to facebook.com/sporting discussion, and there's a forum group there. We can have a chat as well. We're on YouTube as well, going live there. I'm not going to say the address for YouTube at the moment because it's a debacle. It's like the alphabet with a few numbers thrown into there. So just search for a sporting discussion on YouTube. Now, one quick thing for the at ASD_radio. The system we use to broadcast live and across those platforms gives us comments that we can look at, like the one from Sarah before that was from Hamish, and this one you can see on your screen there. That's useless for our podcast audience, but there's a message on the bottom of the screen from someone listening saying g'day. So you get us there, but we can't see comments on the Twitter broadcast, which is incredibly annoying. So hit us in a tweet or in a response to the live broadcast on Twitter. The starting block, Demo Greeno, I've just replied, Andrew, saying they hope you get well soon, which is good. Because how many days is it now? About a week, give or take?
No. So Monday was my positive rat. Tuesday is when I got my brain tickler, and I assume that by Saturday I'll get my result, which means that next Monday I should be free to enter the world, as long as actually I'm pretty sure that I don't even need to test negative. I just need. It's now just 7 days. I will because I'm a responsible citizen.
Well, yeah, you're right. You don't have to. You don't have to anymore. You can just toddle off into the sunshine, head to the pub, do whatever you like.
Yep. Cough on whoever I want. So
what a world.
I know, but I'm hoping that I will return a negative one, because I will then be able next Thursday to get on a plane and fly down to Tasmania for the first 2 days of the Hobart Ashes test.
Well, that'll be good.
If it goes ahead.
We've had some dicey weather in. Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it? We will get to that in a moment too. Now, I'm going to keep this moving because you are with condition and you're in the sporting discussion protocols. How is ASD Stadium actually? This is going to have to be about the 15th time we've had to get a deep clean, but this time it's for a real sickness.
Due to a viral reason. Yeah. But yeah, you can see the wall behind me. The interior decorators have been in, so that's beautiful. It's very very much padded cell like, but good as gold. I got to. I don't have my Fitbit on. I'll put that on tomorrow to see just how few steps it is possible to do in a day.
I can help you with that. As a husky gentleman, it is possible to come in under 100.
So AJ, I want to. Whilst I'm watching Tom Cooper about to bowl in the BBL. Tom Cooper, who is making, I think, his captaincy debut for the Brisbane Heat, because there are 8 new players tonight for the Brisbane Heat after the Rona has gone through their camp. And we saw the Melbourne Stars get decimated. We saw the Melbourne Renegades have had a few cases. Perth Scorchers have had a few. Sydney Sixers have had a few. And there's talk of a few things happening. Now, whether these have been confirmed or not, there's talk that the entire BBL will move to Melbourne and hub or bubble in Melbourne. And then there is also talk of Cricket Australia pulling together a pool of players that are available for teams to use. Now, I want to touch on 2 of those things, because I think there's some confusion about both. The bubble, the reason that they want to have the bubble down here is merely so they've got flexibility on roster to be able to say
it's more of a home base, more a home base than a bubble, isn't it?
Yeah, it's having people within a certain period, a very close time period to the grounds, to allow them to say, Sydney Sixers, you can't play tonight. Righto, Perth Scorchers, you're playing tonight instead of tomorrow night. So it's that flexibility with the fixture. That's the reason. It's not because Melbourne is a COVID safe space and other places aren't. It's probably a bit of border protection, but it's also just let's get them in here so that we can chop and change games. But
there's also been some talk that the Melbourne hub, or the Melbourne, we'll call it a hub. Melbourne hub would be for fly in, fly out purposes. So they may still play games. They may still play games in Sydney, well, but let's say everywhere except Western Australia. But they would always come back to Melbourne, and all of the players would be in the same spot in Melbourne.
Interesting. Yeah, right.
The practicalities of that are interesting. The costs would be astronomical. And I mean, we've talked about this offline quite a bit, Andrew, that maybe the BBL just needs to take a beat for a week or 2 just to kind of let everyone get themselves together. But the Cricket Australia have really been pushing pushing for the cash, haven't they? Because this is their number one moneymaker. 2.5 day test in the Ashes don't do anything. The only ways that Cricket Australia make money are Test series against India, Ashes series, and the Big Bash. Everything else loses money. So this is, jobs are riding on this and budgets are riding on this for the next few years, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's why there seemingly is little to no care for the crowd numbers, the at game crowd numbers, because
there hasn't been for years, has there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's always been a nice thing to have, but it's all about, and rightly so, it's all about selling the vision. I'm pointing up there because that's where I'm watching, but it's all about selling the vision. The India Test series, that I'm going to make some assumptions here. That makes money for two reasons. One, people go to the games, but two, Cricket Australia is able to sell the rights back to the broadcasters in India. And same as the Ashes, the broadcast gets on-sold. Sometimes, as we saw in the first one and maybe two tests, BT in the UK just took the Foxtel feed. They didn't bother overlaying their own commentary. And the English cricket fans went, what the hell is this style of commentary? This is not what we're used to. And so they very quickly pulled together a team for the third and fourth tests to allow for a more English style. So you'd say a little bit more sedate style, and also maybe a bit more of an English focused one as well, because the comments that I heard were that, you know, it was like cheerleading Australians, but I think that if people watched the BT, they'd go, that's cheerleading English people. So,
but at least cheerleading English people tend to call a bit of cricket in between the cheerleading stuff.
Yeah, so Foxtel opinion.
I do like that the world is getting a taste of what we've been copying for decades. But yes, anyway. But can
I touch on the player pool and the seemingly random players who are getting called in to Big Bash games, because the commentary around that has been slightly to extremely disrespectful to those people. Like, people go, oh, they've been called up from park cricket and called up for, so no, a lot of these players have been net bowlers for the Big Bash teams. They've been in and around squads. There's a guy playing for the Brisbane Heat tonight, I think David Grant is his name, who was in the 2016 Australian Under-19 World Cup side. He had a contract with the Adelaide Strikers but didn't get a game, and he's been in and around the Brisbane setup, and he's playing his first game today. So these players aren't just ran. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
a random guy no one's ever heard of. Yeah.
Yep, that's what people are sort of referring to as park cricketers getting a call up. It's like, no, not quite. But hey, it makes a good headline, doesn't it?
So they're bowling in the nets and not actually playing park cricket.
Exactly, yeah. Like, they haven't played park cricket for years, AJ.
Well, BBL's full of scrubbers we've never heard of anyway, so what's another few more? Now, yes, dozens of players in the Big Bash have the Rona at the moment, Andrew, but also there's dozens announced. I think it was something like 1 in 5 players on AFL lists have coronavirus at the moment. 16 players at the Brisbane Broncos in the NRL were tested positive before their preseason training kicks off. There are now dozens as well of NRL players. There are A-League games being postponed. There are, like you said, Big Bash top-up players and locations in the hub they're going to do because there's just so much cash riding on it. The WNBL has been in strife as well. The NBL is in huge trouble. The Tasmania Jack Jumpers can't field a team and had to have 2 games postponed because almost their entire roster is on their asses at the moment. It wasn't supposed to be like this 2.5 odd years into this thing. What do you? And of course, AFLW is supposed to start this week. And there are also dozens of players there who are on their asses with coronavirus or who have tested positive and can't play. So what are we looking at for the next? Give us a prediction for the next few months and into the winter.
So 6 months ago, everyone would have been going, we've got processes in place. We know how to deal with it. No, 4 months ago. Let's go that. 4 months ago, we know what's ahead of us. We'll just put a few quick barriers around teams if there's one case, and maybe have to move a game a few days later. And then it exploded. So 3 weeks ago, there was 5 Gold Coast AFLW players who were in isolation. And the talk at the time was, oh, okay, well, that should be all right because the season's not for another couple of weeks. We'll be fine to get everything going. And then a lot more has happened, both in the AFLW and in all of the other codes, as you mentioned. I'm not sure if AJ, you've disappeared off my screen. I'm not sure if you're still here, but I'm going to keep talking anyway. So North Melbourne captain Emma Carney, she has had a positive rapid test. And actually, she had 2 positive rapid tests. She's waiting for the result of a PCR test. So she, at the moment, is unavailable. Kate Shearlaw, her partner, who plays for St Kilda, she is also obviously unavailable. There will be more players who test positive. And because the government rules around testing positive have changed, and you don't need a positive PCR test, you now just need a positive rapid test, and you can say, yes, I am COVID positive. That's going to mean that it's a lot easier for people to say I can't play, but it's also going to mean there's a lot more people who won't be playing. Now, the AFLW season, as you said, commences tomorrow night. So St Kilda and Richmond have just named their sides. There's a few players that are unavailable. So Ali McKenzie, unfortunately, is unavailable due to injury. She was the first round draft pick for Richmond last year. I think she might have come top 5 and maybe even higher than that in the Richmond best and fairest. So that's disappointing that she can't play. But the big one is with St Kilda, Georgia Patrikios. So she is still unavailable because she's unvaccinated. Now that's her
strange thing, that wasn't it?
Yeah, she's made her personal decision that's she wants to do more, wants to get more information, and that's fine. But as we all know, there are consequences to actions, and if all players need to be vaccinated, then that means that all players need to be vaccinated. So it's really unfortunate because she could very easily be the best player in the competition this year, if not in the next couple of years. So disappointing for St Kilda fans, St Kilda Footy Club, just fans of the women's game in general, because she is a brilliant footballer. But so she's not there. The teams have only been announced for the first match, but the remainder will be announced over the next couple of days, and it's going to be interesting to see how many players are unavailable, who is due to COVID protocols and all that. It's going to be a mess. The biggest issue that I see with the AFLW is the semi-professional nature, people still having day jobs, and they don't have anywhere near as much flexibility to be able to say, oh, okay, yeah, no worries, I'd move the game to Wednesday. Sweet, I can do that. So that's going to be an issue. The players themselves have put their own...
Never mind getting positive at football where you're getting paid bugger all and then going to your job and you can't do it.
Exactly right.
You've already used up your leave to play the football that pays you bugger all.
Yep, that's exactly right. And there's players, unfortunately, that have opted out of this season because of their work situations. And I was reading, I think it was Libby Birch wrote an article, and she was saying that the players themselves came up with a range of protocols that they're putting in place to make sure that they're giving themselves the best opportunity to not be at risk of COVID. So I'll just quickly scroll through the article. But
while you're doing that, I will say you are watching and listening to a sporting discussion live. We're on at ASD Radio _radio, on Twitter, facebook.com/a sporting discussion. We're also on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, give us a wave, give us a comment. Feel free to join in, everyone. Leave a post, say g'day. But remember, if you're watching live on the ASD _radio Twitter, we can't see any comments on the actual live video itself, but we can see if you leave a comment under, like you reply to the tweet with the broadcast in it. So get in touch if you want to. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, hit us up on those channels with any comments, queries, whatever, and you can leave us a voice message too. We'll put the link in the show notes about how to do that through Anchor, where we are hosted.
Yes, exactly.
Have you found what you're looking for?
Everything that he said, I heartily endorse, because I just heard a slight pause and assumed that you had finished, because I've been reading this article. I found the bit that I wanted.
In the business, we call that a cold throw.
Yes. So
yes.
Libby Burge, who plays for Melbourne in the AFLW, she said, in 2022, the onus is on AFLW players to protect the AFLW season. I feel we have a great responsibility to look after ourselves and our clubs. This means that every decision I make to go out in the community increases my chances of not being available to play the next round and puts other players, the club, and season at risk. To reduce this risk, many players are taking matters into their own hands, creating their own social bubbles, organising regular rapid antigen testing for family and friends, limiting social outings to outdoor venues, click and collecting groceries, and reducing hours spent indoors at their workplaces. So, and she does go on to say, I understand these decisions are being made by people every day across the country and the world. They're not unique to AFLW players. However, like casual and other part-time contractors, our careers and lives are at greater risk of being disrupted than permanent or full-time contractors.
Absolutely.
And really good point.
That matters, isn't it? It's the last sentence that makes the big point there. Yes, if only there was some way that the AFL could, have money to put into this, like from $1 billion TV deals or anything like that. I know the AFL came out a couple of weeks back before Christmas, saying that their goal was by 2030, I think it was, to have the most highest paid female athletes or players of any league. They could do that tomorrow if they wanted, but no, they've given themselves till 2030 or whenever it was to doodle across to the line. But anyway, yes, that's another rant for another time. Andrew, enough, Rona. Let's talk some on-field business. And
all right, I don't even know what's been happening. I've been in La La Land the last couple of days. Talk to me.
Well, you might have been watching some cricket back with Bangladesh.
Usman.
Bangladesh beating New Zealand yesterday. Was it yesterday? A couple of days ago. It doesn't matter when it was because it happened. And that has led to quite a bit of discussion around. We're not going into the ins and outs of who took how many wickets and whatever, because the wider, more interesting discussion for that is, why aren't Australia playing teams like Bangladesh? We seem to have India and England here rotating through with South Africa in between every now and then, and maybe a Pakistan here or there. So we've already made the money sign, so we can do that again. But what is there that lack of interest in being a member of the big three in world cricket, that they just don't want to grow the game at all?
Oh, okay. I was not in. It's a very easy point to make, not because it's a lazy point to make, but because the English, Australian, and Indian cricket boards make it such an easy point to make. Even in the women's game, it's the same three teams that are playing test matches. It's a complete and utter disgrace that Sophie Devine and Susie Bates have never played a test match. That is two of the best players in the world, never played a test match. It's an absolute disgrace. And all of the talk about supporting the other nations and the minnows, or whatever you want to call them,
it's all lip service.
Actually, yeah, the number of times that Australia has been meant to host Bangladesh or go to Bangladesh and then cancelled at the last minute with no real explanation, and also no fanfare, nothing has made the news anywhere near as much as England may not come to the 2021-22 Ashes. England will always come into these Ashes, but there were more column inches given to that than there have been to all of the failed tours to and from Bangladesh since the last time that Australia played them. It's
not even really. They don't really say, "Oh, we didn't really, we really want to go, but we just can't do it." They're just going to go, "Oh well, we're not going."
Yeah,
and especially the tour of South Africa that got canned, wasn't it? And then all the things were coming out saying, "Well, here's what Cricket Australia requested, and we granted all of them." And they still didn't come anyway. Now, we being Australia, are supposed to be playing in Pakistan series after this Ashes one. What chance is that? I give that maybe a 20-80 chance that Australia make that trip.
Yeah, I think it might be more than that at this stage, because,
mind you, with all the Rona going around Australia, Pakistan might say, "We don't want you to come in."
Yeah, that's a good point. Look, I want to quickly touch on the Bangladesh versus New Zealand game. So Russell Degnan, who does a lot of work watching and analysing the associate nations and even the and all of cricket really. He's got a system to rank teams and therefore the disparity between teams. He says that is the biggest upset ever in the history of Test match cricket. Really? Bangladesh beating the World Test champions New Zealand at home, even with Kane Williamson not playing, because Shakib Al Hassan was not playing for Bangladesh. So you've basically taken out each of their best players. So yeah, the 100% confirmed biggest upset ever in the history of Test cricket. Pretty cool. Wow. Pretty cool.
Yeah. That is pretty cool. And the game needs that, because England are going to be hapless at Test cricket for quite some time. And South Africa are okay. Australia, for everything that's going on at the moment, Australia aren't really that good.
Australia are performing significantly better than we thought they would.
Yeah, we are playing much above average at the moment. When yes, it's not really. I wasn't really expected of them, but I did not expect England to be so diabolical, and I can't be on my own there.
No, I thought that they would be a lot more competitive. I thought that England would be more competitive and Australia would be less competitive.
I think all we heard for the last 2 and a bit years was how England everything they were doing was gearing towards this Ashes series, and then they came out here and they sit Anderson and Broad in the first Test, which to me was them being a bit too clever by half, because they obviously wanted to use them in the night tests, and they're pretty old dudes, so they didn't want to wear them out in Brisbane heat on what's usually a batsman's paradise. But it's turned out just been a disaster from start to finish for England, from selections to tactics on field to heart, basically, for the contest.
So this is not hindsight comments. The majority of people who follow the game would have said prior to the first Test, and most did say, Anderson and Broad have to play. Joe Root, win the toss, bowl. That is your best way. That's not hindsight viewing. That is legit what I thought, what I said, what a lot of people have said. Yeah. And they didn't do it. And then Stuart Broad goes and takes 5 for today. Yeah. Jimmy Anderson has been bowling brilliantly. And Broad was questioned about the selection in the post-match presser today. And he did say it doesn't really matter what bowling attack you've got when you only make 140 with the bat. Now, that's fine. That's great. But if you've got Broad and Anderson and you're bowled out for 140, you are much more likely to bowl the opposition out for between 100 and 200. You just are. You simply are. They're two of the best bowlers of all time.
Well, they are too. And we can do another unsung Unsung Sports Heroes podcast later on. But yeah, Anderson and Broad are horribly underrated by Australians because
they're no good over here.
Yeah,
whatever.
They're actually quite good over here. But anyway, Andrew, I don't want to keep you much longer because we know you.
I reckon I got 5 minutes.
All right. Well, how's about some questions without notice?
Sure.
I've got a good one. I've got a good one.
Yeah, you can, because you can guarantee that I wouldn't have read anything about it if so. It's something that happened in the last 4 days.
This is a future looking one. Are you ready?
All right, I am.
With all of these positive cases and all of this COVID palaver going on, wrecking the sporting outlook at the moment, which league do you reckon or which comp or which country do you think is going to be the first to say, you know what, if you're not symptomatic but you test positive, you can still play? And basically just say, forget this. It's just like someone having a cold or the flu or, the scoots or something like that. They can still play sick.
So I would think that the NBA is probably the most likely, and then in Australia, I'd say the NRL.
Yeah, I was thinking the NRL.
Well, actually, sorry, the Russian football league, obviously, because I think they just have gone through. Is that the one that was still going last year when there was no sport around? There was no Russian table tennis.
Russian table tennis. It was the Belarusian football league.
That's the one. Yeah. So them. Look. So again, just picking up on something you said there, where you go, it's like the cold or the flu or someone's got the squirts. When someone has that, they're isolated from their team. Like that's what happens. Like if someone has got the flu, or someone's got diarrhea, the club's going, oh, you stay away, stay home.
Basically, it's see you at game time.
Yeah,
and then they fill them up with hydrolyte and no-dose and whatever, and stack them full of what's the anti
and Michael Jordan Michael anti-nausea tablets, and Michael Jordan goes out and plays a brilliant game.
Well, yeah, I think that day is coming sooner rather than later.
Has to.
Yeah, for me, it wouldn't surprise me if it is the NRL here or the AFL, just sheerly on the number of players who are affected, because then they are going to have to start getting park footballers in. And the big problem with those leagues is that the leagues under them haven't played for 2 years or have been on and off the field, like the bloody SCG grounds crew over the last couple of years. But yes, I like that one. Have you got a question without notice, or would you like another one?
Give me another one.
All right. Well, this next one, I don't want to ask more Rona stuff, but it's just so topical. Actually, no, I'll ask you a good one. Djokovic plays at the Open, yes or no?
No. And I've got a reason for that as well.
All right, well, let's have it.
So, I think this is what I've read. If you are not vaccinated, you can get an exemption, but you need to quarantine.
Yep.
I don't think there's enough time for him. So that's why I think that it's going to be too difficult for him to play.
What do you think about? Sorry, one last one off notice.
Yeah.
What do you think of the long-term impact of this on Australian sport? I've had a couple of messages throughout the week saying that it's a horrendous look for Australia for sport and major events. So, Formula One, FIFA, the Women's World Cup's here in 2023, the Rugby World Cup's in 2027, the Olympics are coming. Do you think this will have an impact on how Australia is viewed as a sporting thing, or what do you think the lasting impact is on this? Will we be okay because no one likes Novak?
No, I think that there's going to be a whole number of people going, what's this backwater town doing? But I would think that the Venn diagram of those people and those who think that we are currently a police state with people running around holding us down and jabbing vaccine in our arm is a circle. So there'll be a vocal minority, but it'll be fine. It won't have any impact on the future. What it might do is it will allow the various authorities, the leagues and governments, more leeway to say, right, we are having this tournament under these restrictions. You're staying in this place where so for example, the Women's World Cup, we are having the Women's World Cup in Perth, and these are the 4 grounds that we're playing all of the games at. This is where the players are staying. They're not going to be able to go and talk to anyone else or see anyone else. I think it'll give a little bit more sort of impetus for associations and leagues and countries to do that. And I think that's probably maybe the only lasting impact. What do you reckon?
I think I agree with your last bit there. I think places like the US Open and Wimbledon and other spots are going to be more tighter on things like this now. And now that they've got, assuming that Djokovic doesn't win his appeal, and even if he does, like you said, he'll have to quarantine, and that means he's not going to be available until I think it's the 2nd or 3rd day of the Open. And they need to arrange I think it's by Thursday next week. Tennis Australia need to organise a replacement player, but that's by the by. I agree that it's going to be, it will be seen as the precedent around the world for punting people who don't fit the requirements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I've got a question for you.
Mind you, having said that, we literally did just talk about sports just letting positive people play. So who knows? Who knows where it's all?
There's got to be a mix.
But I think
there's got to be a mix.
But it'll be the vaccination. The vaccination one will be the kicker for all of that, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So speaking of vaccine, I think Kyrie Irving made his debut for the season in the last couple of days.
Yeah, for the Brooklyn Nets in the NBA. Yeah. He's actually not allowed to play home games because New York has a vaccine mandate. So he's only playing away games for Brooklyn. Right. And they only brought him in because they are in shocking form, and they've had a whole bunch of injuries and rona as well.
Right.
He's a bloody good player. So
well, so that was going to be my question. My question is, what leeways are going to get given based on how good a player is?
Oh, it is the ultimate rules for some, isn't it? Yeah, it's going to be your access to playing. It's going to be hard, though. It's going to be hard. Your access to teams and your access to games and your access to them more in team sports is going to be based on how good you are, because we're saying with Djokovic, when there's a political point to be made, it doesn't matter how good you are. And sometimes it's not good to be the one who's the best in the world at something when someone wants to make a point.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. Like we are big on rules for some and the various impact or various suspensions and sanctions that players get for doing the same thing as what someone else has done. But
one player stacking is a good player's 1 week off training, you know.
yeah, exactly. And the Rona rules are going to be pretty strict. So yeah, let's see. It's
going to be interesting and frustrating as hell.
Yeah, there's gonna be rules for some though.
Yeah,
I can feel it in my bones.
Oh, you know it. That's how sport works. But yes.
It is.
All right. On that note, Andrew, we will let you go to bed.
Yes.
Have a Tylenol. Cover yourself in ice water.
I'm starting to get a bit sweaty, which is mildly concerning.
You've done well to stick it out for 49 minutes. So thank you. Oh, thank you for putting it in. And thank you, everyone, for listening, paying attention, tuning into a sporting discussion. Remember, we are on Twitter at AScore ASD_radio, or facebook.com/sporting discussion. Our website, which we will one day write articles for, is sportingdiscussion.com.au. And you can pick us up anywhere you get your podcast. But if you're listening to the podcast, you know that because you're listening to the podcast. But if you were talking to your friends about podcasts you like, tell them that they can get a Sporting Discussion on any podcast platform. We prefer anchor.fm because they're the lovely people who host us. That might do us for today. Andrew, thanks again for coming on. We will talk again, soon, health permitting.
Yep. COVID's real. Look after yourself, people.
Thanks, everybody. Go get your boosters.